Hi, welcome to DramaMeans. This week we talk about the 2024 Japanese movie City Hunter. Today, drama means over-exaggeration, drama means unexpected partnership, and drama means horse penis cosplay.
So City Hunter is about an infamously oversexed private eye who teams up with the sister of his slain partner to stop a dangerous crime syndicate from turning Japan's youth into deranged, drug-addicted, superpowered killers.
This movie is an adaptation of a manga. I think it was early 80s, I think?
Late 80s, I think 85 or something like that.
Yeah, late 80s into the 90s.
Yeah, it was first a manga and then quickly an anime, and then it was a Hong Kong film in the early 90s, and then they did, a Korean series of it much, much later.
Yeah. It's so weird because it does say that it is an adaptation of the manga, but I remember watching City Hunter back when it was airing, and it really didn't have any of the aspects of the manga at all. You know, in the manga, the character Rio is a perverted, sex-driven private detective. So that's his character, and you sure as hell wouldn't find Lehman play that type of character.
So you're talking about the Korean series really didn't follow the character from the original manga anime.
Yeah. Whereas the Jackie Chan version is over the top perverted. And then in this one it shows definitely he is a, pervert. He likes the women, but it actually is more toned down. If you actually go back and watch the Jackie Chan version, it is like the most sexist, demeaning. It was awful.
Well, it's like the epitome of like toilet humor and boy humor, but like adolescent boy humor, and it's so juvenile. And I think the big problem with the Jackie Chan version is that there's just nothing else in it. It is just like sex jokes and bad action. There's no real plot. There's no character development. There's nothing in it that would make you go, oh, this is a movie. It was just kind of a 2-hour running joke of how he was a pervert and liked boobs.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. Like, I couldn't stomach it at all. Yeah, it's weird because I did watch it when I was a child, which I don't think that I should have ever watched it as a child, but I don't remember it. When, I remember, yes, I watched City Hunter, back in the day when I was a child, but then I didn't remember anything about it at all, and then when we rewatched it, I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
It's really bad even by the standards of, 90s sex comedies when you talk about Animal House or Porky's or all these, 80s, 90s John Hughes films that were all about getting laid. City Hunter, the Jackie Chan one, is even kind of gross by those standards, which it's weird to watch the Japanese one, which is very overt in its character portrayal. They don't hide the fact that he's a pervert. He likes women. He's always trying to see women naked. That's who he is. He's a pervert from the first minute. What you get immediately. But it didn't take it on as the only characteristic of the movie, the way the Jackie Chan one did, where that was the only characteristic of his character was that. He didn't do anything else.
Anyway, so that is the tone. It has a very Lupin feel to it. If anyone has watched Lupin before, it's that same kind of bum bum bum.
We're talking about classic Lupin, not the French Netflix remake that came out a few years ago, which was very serious crime.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's the original Lupin, who was kind of more hammy.
Yeah.
A little more comedic.
Yeah, and I think it was also in that same era, in the 80s, maybe a little bit earlier, 70s.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when Lupin came out, but
yeah.
But they've done so many Lupins, throughout the years, and in video games and computer games.
Yeah, and there's actually probably more recent Lupin versions out there.
Yeah, the French one was the last one that I saw. I didn't particularly like it because it did feel like it just kind of got rid of all of the characteristics of it. I think probably because they thought it was juvenile. But when you take that away, it's kind of like you could have called it anything. You could have called it Hank. Like he's no longer Lupin anymore.
Yeah. So they do keep that characteristic of the character of Rio in this one. And I mean, people may not like it because he is a pervert and that's his character, but this was also based off of a manga from the late 80s. So it still gives like a good nod at the manga / anime, and then it actually kind of gives a little wink at like Jackie Chan's fighting style. I saw a lot of like fighting moves that's very Jackie Chan-esque, where, you know, the way how he kind of like uses her, you know, to kind of swing her around as he's fighting. That's like a very Jackie Chan thing, using like the equipment that's around. You know, it's just, so it has like a little wink at the Jackie Chan version. Thank goodness it didn't have any of the other aspects of Jackie Chan's City Hunter.
I think they did a good job in this one on all of the winks. I feel like they nodded at anime, they nodded at manga, they nodded at, you know, the comic world and the Jackie Chan version. They kind of went into it going, how can we take these little tricks and pay homage to these other versions and kind of acknowledge that it's not a new idea?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people are like, oh, I invented the strong, silent protagonist. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, that's come before. Like, let's give a little nod to what's come before us if we can. And I think they did a really good job of that in this one.
Yeah, and it definitely has that classic Japanese slapstick humor in it.
For real, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, in-your-face slapstick ridiculousness.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who aren't used to, like, Japanese humor or, like, watch anime or manga, read manga, like, they're not going to understand that this is very, like, classic, and it's, like, bringing that touch of, like, classic to, like, the new production.
I will say this movie did something really smart, in my opinion, which, and you brought it up, it's kind of the tone setting. And not just tone setting as far as, hey, here's the character, he's a little bit of a pervert. If you don't like this first scene, you're not going to like the rest of the movie. But also, the whole first sequence is just so over the top. He, like, zip lines through the window, and they freeze frame as he kicks the guy in the face. Like, it's so comic book. And at one point, he's, like, riding the massage raft across, you know, Shibuya crossing basically through the air. And the guy's like, oh, he looks like Aladdin. Like, they're just calling out what kind of movie you're watching within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you sat through the whole thing and were upset at what the movie was, they told you within the first 10 minutes what you were going to be watching.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very smart, because setting the table for a movie like this is so important. Because if you just started doing this weird sense of humor in your face, you know, oh, he's a perverted Aladdin riding a massage inflatable. If you started doing that a half an hour into the movie, your audience would be like, wait, what am I watching? I thought I was watching a movie about a partner dying and emotions, and all of a sudden it takes you out of it. But since they set up and they set the table so nicely, now they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. So as you were saying with the emotions and stuff, I do think that it is a decent balance between, like, okay, so it's bringing this, you know, his partner dying, and like setting up that, you know, there's more to why he's so adamant about trying to solve this case. And it's just like, it has that like hidden emotion in it. Not hidden, but it's just like, most of it is slapstick, most of it is humor, but it definitely has those moments where, like, okay, you can relate. Howdy, she's very upset about her brother dying, and like being upset at herself for like not even being able to go and like hold him for his last moments because she was too scared. It gives you those really good moments amongst the slapstick humor and like the potty jokes and the, you know, dick humor, all that. And it's just like a nice little balance. So it's not just like this really tiring, constant, like joke after joke after joke, and like perversion after perversion after perversion. Like, it actually gives you some real human emotions, like them being able to say milk.
Well, they gave him personal stakes. The Jackie Chan version, they gave him no personal give a shit about anything that was happening in the movie. Like, first of all, they do all of the partner emotions. Oh, my partner died and now I take care of his younger sister. It's all done in this weird expositional, like, stage play. So you get to feel none of the emotions, and I think they were scared of the emotions because they just didn't want it getting in the way of their slapstick humor. And so in this version, they weren't afraid of that. They weren't afraid to give us the slapstick humor, but then give our main character, Ryo, a actual personal objective, a personal emotional tie to stopping the bad guys. And then they got to develop the relationship with Kaori because now they're working together rather than just being thrown together and they're partners and who cares.
Yeah, and I do like how they became partners. At first he was like, no, don't follow me. You know, this is dangerous. Just let it go. He's going to take care of it. Also, like, with the whole first scene of him, like, with the escorts on the street, and she's, like, reaching out to him and, like, just following him around and, like, mad that he's just, like, with women and you know, mad at his perversion, whatever. But at one point, it's small and subtle, so maybe some people don't even catch it. But one of the escorts says to him, don't worry, if I find anything out, I'll let you know. And then, you know, he goes off and the girls go off, and what he was really trying to do is he's using these escorts to, like, as his informants.
Well, yeah, I think that was an interesting way to start the relationship with them, because she thinks he's being irresponsible is the wrong word, but he's not caring about his partner dying. And, oh, you're not even looking into this. And he's absolutely looking into this. So it gives her a reason to be insistent, because she feels there's no one who cares about her brother's death, not even his partner. And he's like, hey, back off, I've got this handled, because I am actually investigating this. And it's when she won't put it down, he has to completely come clean to her and go, well, since you're here, I guess you're here, and you can come and investigate this with me, because I'm already doing it. And I have been since the moment he died, because I really give a shit about this.
Yeah, it's small, and although he's still perverted, we're not saying he's not, because he sure likes them boobs, but, you know, it might even hinder some of his investigation because of his boob addiction. But
well, I will say this version makes him the butt of the joke a little bit too, whereas the Jackie Chan one, he's never the butt of the joke. It's always just, I'm a pervert, I want to chase women around. Like, that's the whole thing. Where in this version, you know, he goes in and he has to do a striptease of his own to get into, like, the back room at the strip club. So, like, he has to show all of his goods. And they kind of poke fun at his sexuality a little bit as well. So it's not just one-sided. And I think that helps a little bit. Like, yes, if you don't like this kind of humor, you're not going to like the movie. But I do think giving it and taking it takes some of the sting off of it being, like, just gross.
Yeah. And the Jackie Chan version, so gross.
Real gross.
Yeah. Like, in this one, the humor is ridiculous. You know, we're not going to get away from the fact that he wore a horse head on his dick.
No. It wasn't on his dick. It was just coming out of the front of his pants. It was also a very large, it was like him riding a horse, but it was just coming out through his fly. So it wasn't like he was wearing a giant horse cock ring. Like, let's not give people that visual. I just did.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like him riding a horse.
But here's the thing that I find interesting, is that people don't bat an eye going to a cosplay show or watching anime with big boobs, and there's shots of big boobs. People don't bat an eye at that stuff. And then the second it's a joke or it's in a movie, oh my God, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're sexualizing these cosplayers. cosplay is kind of a sexualizing of characters. Like, a lot of cosplay gets into that, and no one seems to mind. And then there's like a line, I guess, what the people had with this movie, because, oh, it's just gross and it's gross humor. I'm like, yeah, sometimes you can look at things and they're a little weird and they're a little gross and they're a little like not your taste. But the line is weird. The line where the line is drawn is a little weird for me.
But that's the thing, like, he literally is, yes, he's perverted. He is wearing a horse head that comes out his fly of his pants, right?
Yes.
Right? Yes, he's perverted. But literally, he's the one that's saving her, Milk, from getting those guys, like, down trying to take pictures of her underwear and crotch.
Exactly.
Like, he's literally, like, helping her and getting in the way of these other men that are sexualizing her.
Exactly. Yeah,
So.
I said that very badly. I think that's, like, he's a sexual deviant, but there's a line that's like, well, that's gross. Upskirt photos aren't cool, boys. And so he protects her from the upskirt photos, which is a perversion, which is actually a perversion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's some chivalry in here in his really weird way.
Yeah. So it's just, he just kind of walks that gray space, that fine line between, like, pervert and, like, hero? No, I don't know.
I don't know what to call him. I wouldn't even call him a hero, because he is, like, weirdly self-centered and can't take anything seriously. And yeah, it's interesting that this kind of movie can get made in 2024, and I think it kind of requires it to be a Japanese movie. Like, I don't see an American movie going this far the way this one does, and for better or worse. Again, you can like it or you can hate it and you can be disgusted by it, but we're all adults and we get to watch whatever we want.
Yeah.
And we get to laugh at the jokes we want to laugh at, and you might find it offensive. Well, then watch something else. No one is putting a gun to your head telling you have to watch and love everything.
True. Also with the tone, like I mentioned, yeah, it has a very, like, the tone of Lupin, but I know you mentioned that it also has the tone of, was it Bullet Train?
Yeah, this felt really Bullet Train to me. And I think, for obvious reasons, Bullet Train took a Western movie that was heavily influenced by anime and manga and Japanese action movies, and probably Hong Kong action movies to a certain extent, and took that over-the-top idea and put it on a bullet train with Brad Pitt. And so now we have our A-list American movie stars doing this kind of throwback to these Japanese action movies. So the tone was very similar here, too. They were kind of like taking the ball back. It was like Bullet Train was carrying the ball, and now this show is kind of like, hey, we want that back, because we kind of do that here still, too. And we do it well.
This movie, yeah.
Yeah, show, movie, whatever.
This is seen in a lot of these Japanese dramas, movies, where there's always this evil syndicate that is plotting everything, and everything is, like, under their, thumb. Like, they have everything planned out, and anytime anyone, like, is of no use anymore, something in their brain just blows up. Like, it's so Japanese, like, crime syndicate, like, stories. It just seems, and it has that in it, but it always kind of fails, in my opinion, because they never have a clear goal. It's just, like, evil in somewhere.
Yeah, they tried a little bit with a goal at some point in this, where it was like the doctor was like, I'm doing this for some odd reason. I was like, okay. Do you think it is a little bit like Japanese society is so, like, organized? Like, it's like the joke is always like, if you want somebody to organize something for you, you call Japanese and Germans. Like, they just organize things really freaking well. I think Eddie Izzard said that. I think I'm quoting as the Eddie Izzard here.
Okay.
But Japanese culture, like, if you look at the way their trains run, the way their roads work, like, everything is very organized. In a city as big as Tokyo, it has to be. And so it makes sense that they take that organization and apply it to crime. Like, there's always an organized crime syndicate who's got it all figured out. It's like, I got to, like, line it up, take it down. And then it's the chaos that has to kind of undo the organization. See where I'm going here?
Oh, gosh. It's kind of a big stretch, but okay.
I mean, This whole thing is a big stretch.
I just like, anyway, whatever it is, like these weird organized crime syndicates, like, to me, never really have a good plan, actually. Like, I feel like it unravels because it's like not that logical, and also they just don't have a clear goal, in my opinion, most of the time.
The goal is the problem, because if they had a clear goal, then you could work backwards and figure out how that their actions survive. My biggest thing with crime syndicates is, like, okay, let's say you're a normal person. Maybe you're a normal henchman type person, and you go to apply for a job as an evil henchman. And
so you're a normal henchman applying to be an evil henchman.
Or you're just a henchman and you're in the henchman union and you haven't had a job in a while and you've been calling the union office and they're like, hey, we're going to send you on this interview. And so you go and you interview to be an evil henchman. And one of the things they tell you is, okay, the pay's great, the benefits are great. You're going to get to hench the shit out of stuff, right? There's going to be so much henching. But we're going to implant something in your brain, so if you ever do something we don't like, we can blow your head off. Now, there are certain red flags that employers can kind of, like, it's a red flag when someone says to me, like, you know what, we're not a company, we're a family here. Like, that's a red flag for me. But implanting an explosive device in my brainstem just might be a red flag for a prospective employer. I don't know. That seems like a stretch.
Yeah. Well, because they pay very well, right?
Yeah, but I mean...
But the thing is, the minute they go to pay you, and then you turn around, they just blow you up anyway.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I went in for a job where they made us sign something, and then I had found another person who worked there, and they were like, oh yeah, I had to give them permission to remotely wipe my phone if they want. Like, this person is like, I work at this company, I'm not going to name the company, that she had to sign a contract that said at any moment that they felt that she was untrustworthy, they would be able to wipe her phone remotely, and she had to give them that permission. So I wouldn't even do that, let alone let someone implant an explosive device in my brainstem.
I mean, like, do they know it's an explosive device in their brainstem? Or they just think it's like... I don't know.
No, they knew, because the second it started going beep, 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 everyone in the room was like, oh no,
my head's gonna blow
my head's
up.
gonna explode. Like, someone's head's gonna explode. Like, that was a big part. Like, they all knew it was coming. So that's my problem with organized syndicates, is like the deranged nature of the situation that these people find themselves in. Like, wait, how did you agree to that in the first place? Like, how did you apply for this job where you probably were like, yeah, they're going to surely kill me at some point with the head exploding thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So don't sign your life away when you go on this job interview and someone's like, hey, we're going to have to do a small procedure if we give you this job.
Yeah. Don't agree to anything. I think this is a public service announcement, really, that, given the state of the economy right now, if you're in the hunt for a job out there, be a little more choosy. Don't let people implant things in you.
Yeah. Anyway.
The other thing I didn't love about this was Kaori's character at the beginning. I felt she was pretty annoying and pretty whiny. And one of the things, I don't mind a whiny character, and I also don't mind I want to call her uneducated, but she's uneducated in PIing at the beginning. Like, she doesn't understand the pool she's wading into. What did get me was she goes to Rio and says, I need your help. You're the city hunter. You're the expert. Please help me. And he says, go home. And then she chases him around for a while. And then he finally is like, fine, come with me. And then she proceeds to never listen to him ever. He keeps saying, hey, wait, don't just charge in. And she's like, I'm going to charge in. And it's like, well, why did you ask for this guy's help? He's the expert. You're an idiot. Why did you ask for his help and then ignore every moment he tries to help?
Yeah, well, quite frankly, I didn't like her character in either of the movies. She was really horribly obnoxious and worthless in the Jackie Chan version of City Hunter. Like an overbearing, like weird, like I'm already your wife kind of.
Yeah, well,
like,
she already wanted a relationship from him in that. Like, she wanted him to be the one woman man, even though he's a playboy pervert.
yeah.
And they kind of got rid of that in the Japanese version, where she's not infatuated with him necessarily in a romantic way at all.
Thank goodness. Yeah, so, but then like her annoying, obnoxious personality was still there, and I'm assuming that's her character in the manga too. But it does give like a nice arc, because in the beginning she is very annoying, very like, bull in an antique shop kind of feel, where she just kind of like goes in head first without any kind of thought of how she's gonna, do anything.
Yeah, she doesn't have any forethought to how she would possibly like solve her brother's murder and how she's actually going to help. She's just kind of like, oh, I guess I'll just run out into the street and ask everyone if they've seen the bad guy. Like, it's just, there's no thought process to it at all. And I get it, they want her to grow.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a very good place to grow from.
Yeah, I agree. But she did grow, and then to a point where she was like a worthy partner for him, and it was interesting because he's like, it's time for plan B, and she's like, what's plan A? And then it's like, time for plan C, and she goes, right, plan C.
Well, which was exactly what her brother was doing in the opening sequence, where he's like, it's time for plan B, and he's like, you never told me what plan A was. And so she was falling in line as a person that was his partner. And I thought that was pretty, at that point, I was kind of on board with their thing, and you kind of get it. And it's a very anime thing at that point, where she's like his gun assistant.
Yeah.
Like throwing him gun mags. And it's like, oh, she's got all the weapons so that he can do all the fighting, and it's this symbiosis now.
Yeah. And to the point where, like, at first, he's like, give it to me, hand it to me, throw it to me, whatever. And then it's to the point where she knows exactly when he needs it. And it's just like, it's such a small thing, but it just gives you, like, oh, her growth, her, like, oh, they work well together. It just works for the scene, for the movie.
Well, and then he gets to clock it for the audience too, when she, like, no look hands him the two clips, and he kind of looks at her like, oh, touche. Like, and he gets to look at the audience too, goes, hey, look at that. Like, even in this sequence, we started as a kind of bumbling duo, and by the end of the sequence, we're a unit, which I thought was really well done. That was probably my favorite sequence in the movie, just because it was so anime manga style, really slick, but over the top action. Like, it was just kind of all the good things about the movie, all in one sequence.
Yeah.
Whereas, not to keep bagging on the Jackie Chan version,
we can. It's so bad.
but that was the movie that would just never end. And it was just pointless action sequence after pointless action sequence, after stupid Street Fighter 2 reference, after, like, just unnecessary nonsense. And by the way, talking about henchmen, they must have killed 5,000 henchmen in that version of City Hunter, and it was only one cruise ship. How many henchmen can you possibly fit on a cruise ship that you can kill? There were so many red pajama henchmen in that.
Yeah, it was just terrible. And, like, there was no explanation of, like, why the characters were there, who they were, why there's, like, this random, like, Leon Lai's character, how he could just, I don't know, use a deck of playing cards to, like, kill people, and then, like, but, like, there's no explanation of who he is, why he's on the ship, like, he's just there to help, and, like, he's just a badass that, like, hits on the cop. It's just so bad, and the characters were bad, and there was, like, absolutely no, like, purpose for it at all. There's, like, a random, like, so there's, like, this musical duo called, I think it's, like, Yunnan Kingxi, something like that, where, like, they're, like, a rap duo, I believe, and then, but all their lyrics are, like, comedic. So at the time, in the 90s, they were huge, and everyone liked them, and they were comedic, and they were slapstick, and for whatever reason, they were cast in this movie, and then had, like, a full-on, like, 5-minute sing dance scene, and
music video in the middle of the movie.
it was so ridiculous, and so, like, There was absolutely no purpose for anything that happened in the movie.
I would say the biggest difference between the two movies, and there's a lot of differences, but when we go down to like baseline why I think one worked and one didn't, is that the Jackie Chan version of City Hunter had no motivation for the characters to do anything they were doing, and it had no justification for any of the jokes they were doing. So if you want to have a 5-minute music video in the middle of your movie, it better progress the plot. It better be the opportunity. You know, it's the Ocean's 11, the boxing match is only happening, like we're robbing it during the boxing match because that's the best time to rob the casino. It's not just a boxing match for a boxing match's sake. So there's motivation and justification for everything. In the Jackie Chan version, we had none of that. There was no motivation or justification for any of the things that were happening. Whereas the Japanese version, I did feel like they did a good job of keeping him grounded into the story. The bad guys, their plan was convoluted, and I don't really know if it was fully baked, but they did feel like, all right, we have a plan here. We're going to like use this chemical and do these mind control beast things. I don't know exactly what it was, but you could tell there was some thought behind it, and he has reason to want to stop them. And so there was just motivation for all the characters to at least be doing the things they were doing. I did feel like the kind of Darth Vader, I also killed your father thing at the end. Like, I get them wanting to tie it in.
It's not necessary. I mean, it is because that's why the brother was so adamant about working on this case and finding who the bad guy was and putting, you know, this drug out, whatever.
Yeah. I feel like it's something that in the old days would have come in the middle of like Act 2 and pushed us into Act 3. And now, because of the sequel setting ways that movies are written, they have to save this twist for the very, very end. And in the context of this movie, it's a big fat who cares, because we're so far down the movie. You're just justifying what you said of, well, that's the reason the brother was interested in this, and that's why he wanted to solve this case. It's like, I know, but the brother's been dead for an hour and a half. And we don't really care about who killed his father. Like, it's off-screen motivation. It's so messy. But in this sequel planting world, they don't want to give that too early, because then they can't make the sequel all about her emotions after finding that out. If she found that out in the middle of the movie, she would have to process those emotions in this movie and not in a sequel. So get ready for City Hunter 2.
You think there will be? I feel like there might be, because they definitely set it up to where, like, they're going to work together, so more cases will come about. And they never really solved this particular drug thing because there was a bigger, badder person, because it's an evil syndicate. There's always going to be a bigger, badder person. Yeah,
I mean, that's the only reason I would say there could be sequels is I don't know if this was considered a success. It's hard to know in Netflix whether something's considered a success or a failure, especially these international products, because this could have been really successful in Japan and really good for Netflix or bad for Netflix. We don't know where all the money is coming from. So it's hard to say, oh, well, they'll definitely do a sequel. Like, was this a Netflix production across the board, or was this a Japanese production that then Netflix kind of co-produced? There's all these partnership things that go on behind the scenes now, unfortunately. So who knows? But I think story-wise, they're for sure set up for one, because, like you say, syndicates never have an end of the syndicate. There's always a guy, behind the girl, behind the other guy, you know, to do bad and evil things in generic ways.
Yeah, I hate evil syndicates.
Who knew? That was one of your icks.
Yeah. Anyway, now you do.
Put that on your list. If a guy is in an evil syndicate, it is such an ick.
I mean, I feel like that is something that is just automatically assumed. Don't you think?
I don't know. People assume a lot of crazy things and don't assume a lot of crazy things. So people are in their own heads a lot. You never know.
Yeah, maybe that's like a turn on for somebody. It's like, ooh, evil syndicate? Yes, please.
You know who it's a turn on for? The guy who's applying for the job at the evil syndicate. He's like, hey, I've got a full-time job.
Okay.
Why is this an ick? I don't understand. I'm gainfully employed.
Anyway, yes. So, needless to say, if you want me to rate the Jackie Chan version, if I could give negative stars, I would. We don't have a negative part of the DramaMeans effective scale.
Gouging out my eyes with a melon baller.
Something like that. That would be Jackie Chan's 1993 City Hunter.
Jumping off the back of the ship with no regard for my personal safety.
Something like that.
Being chopped apart. I'm going to stop.
But for the 2024 Japanese movie City Hunter would be in the buffet line for me.
I agree. I think it's in the buffet line. It's kind of close to a 9 because much like Bullet Train, I just kind of enjoyed the watch. And it was dumb and it was fun and I didn't care that some of it didn't make sense. I wasn't expecting it to be Shakespeare. Again, from the first minute, I knew what I was watching. And then, to use I knew the flavor of popcorn they were trying to sell me, and then I just kind of ate it. And I was fine.
Yeah. I'm more on the lower end of the in the buffet line, but I did think some parts were funny and it was completely ridiculous. The annoying Kaori character really did not do it for me. The weird, again, my ick is Evil Syndicate, so that didn't do it for me. So yeah, on the lower end of in the buffet line for me.
As the guy who's written a lot of Evil Syndicates into episodes of television, I'm a little less hard on them.
This week, our recommendation is, I think the first season is 2016, but it's an anime called Bungo Stray Dogs. It has a very similar tone in terms of, it's like detective stuff. They're fighting all these different, Syndicates, different ones, like different evil syndicates. And, they all kind of have like a little bit of a superpower.
Yeah, they're all kind of like entangled, like some syndicates have passed with other ones, and there's kind of a power struggle between them.
Yeah, so it's, the tone is like similar detective-y, very the bum bum bum, solve the case or whatever. It also has the tone of Durarara, if anyone's ever seen that. I'm not sure if it's done by the same company, but it's so similar that I would imagine it is done by the same company. But yeah, so it has like quirky humor, quirky characters, some emotional moments, and some endearing moments. So
it also feels like one of those anime that's kind of flown under the radar with how many big anime, when you think about like Jujutsu Kaisen and My Hero and Haikyuu, just all these animes that everyone knows by the instant you start talking about them. This one seems like it flew a little bit more under the radar. Like, I know it was popular, but you don't hear it mentioned in the same breath as some of, Demon Slayer and all these other ones that have gotten so much play here in the U.S.
Yeah. So definitely check that out if you like quirky, case solving, little bit of fantasy. Yeah, go check it out.
And that does it for this episode of the DramaMeans podcast. Make sure you check out our Instagram at DramaMeans_podcast, where we put all sorts of weird stuff and some short videos. You can also check us out on YouTube, all of the platforms. Go ahead and follow us everywhere.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. See you next week.